Here I come. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello, hello. I think I'm here. Am I here? Yes, I am. Are you
Hello,
here
mate.
too? Hello.
Hello, mate. Can you hear me?
Who's that?
It's Matt. It's me. Hello.
Ah, hello, Matt. How are you? Sorry,
I'm
my
good, mate.
my my windows are not scrolled in the right direction at the moment. That's it. I got you.
Yes.
Excellent. More
Good man.
modular action.
Afraid
I've
so.
I've got the Prophet X here on the test bench. That's my
Oh,
interesting.
taste. Yeah? You liking it?
Yeah, it's interesting because it does sound really good, but there are a few things that you just kind of think, like some of the samples are not what I would consider to be the finest representation of what sampled instruments can produce,
Ah,
and it's the stereo voices sound amazing, but you've only got 8, which is quite a few less than you would hope for in an
yeah,
instrument of that
right.
cost. So it's a bit it's one of those sort of tricky to figure out, but it does sound great.
Well, I'm looking forward to the review.
Jolly good. Might be a while. There's a lot to it.
I've
Let's
just been
see.
doing some live streaming all this week of as I've been building patches up on this modular and working on my EP. So I just figured I would every now and then I just turn on the GoPros in here and do a live stream and talk about how I'm patching it all together and making up sounds, which is kind of good because it helps me keep a sort of video diary as well, so I can remember some of the
Well,
cool
that's a good
things I'm
idea.
doing.
Good plan.
Yeah, right.
Excellent. I think we got Gaz as well today,
Hey.
though. Yeah, he's probably it's only 22, so we've got a bit of time. We got Dave Spears. That's the 55, and look, that rather kind of
Oh my
plinth
word!
up
Look at
909.
that.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh,
See the
yeah.
SDS5 modules down there below
Down
the
there, yeah,
Andromeda. Nice,
yeah. Wow,
lovely stuff.
makes my Euro rack look like a little kid's toy.
Well, it's different.
Yeah.
Probably got more features in it for the square footage than the 55. To be fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, it's cooled down a bit in the UK, which is nice. Although it's getting hot again. It happened to the full cool down happened to coincide with me being at a festival for the weekend with the
Oh, where did you go,
driving
Womad?
wind and rain. Yeah, WOMAD. Yes.
I heard a lot of artists didn't. Well, they couldn't make it due to the whole.
I'm not sure a lot. Some definitely. Yeah,
Some, right.
they were challenged at immigration, which
Right.
is a very weird thing. They were refused visas.
Right.
And there was a sort of urban myth. I don't know if it's true going around that basically the reason they were because they said, well, surely somebody from the UK could perform instead, and it's like, yeah, but it's a world music festival.
World music.
I don't know how true that was, but
Yeah.
it seemed to fit the narrative that was. It was there were these stickers given out that just said bollocks to Brexit, and and almost everybody was wearing one. You know, it was. I
Right.
mean, but it is a bit like you'd imagine that would be the case at a festival like that, really. But
I wonder
it's
how
quite.
involved Peter is with it still,
I
and
think
what
it's a
have you.
separate business now. It's a separate
Yeah.
concern. I mean, I'm sure he still owns the company. I should imagine, but I don't think he's running it.
Right.
But it was fun. I did enjoy it, actually. I thought it was going to be more miserable than it was, but we had a very good exit. A Wexit, I like to call it, actually, which was because it poured with rain over Saturday night, and we said, look, if it's going to be like that tonight, we're leaving tomorrow morning. So we started to jettison some of the more, like the cooker and the little table and the chairs and stuff, put them all in the car. And then in the morning, we got up and we were out of there in about 20 minutes, which was pretty good going, actually.
Cool, man.
Well, it was cool, and it sort of wasn't, because it was peeing with rain.
Wow.
But it was fun, I mean, we executed it very well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good. It was. I'm glad I did it. I ended up spending the weekend with my partner's sister, who is actually our MEP for the Southwest. So she was there doing it. She's a Green MEP, and she was doing a talk on one of the stages about various political things. It was quite interesting, because I haven't seen any of that stuff before at WOMAD. So and it was nice to hang around. It was very funny watching our MEP soaking wet, trying to fold a tent up and stuff it into the car. It was all hands on deck. There was no kind of airs and graces. So yeah, it was quite quite a different weekend, but it wasn't too cold, But yeah, I'm glad. I was absolutely knackered.
Yeah, I haven't been to a festival for a while, actually. I'd really like to. I kind of always feel like I'm missing out. But then when I do go to it, I'm not very good at camping these days. So did you stay in a tent?
Oh yeah. We did the whole
glamp it.
No, we didn't glamp it. We managed to get some crew camping, so we were able to be quite near our car, which made a big difference for the exit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, and I saw some good stuff. But I always feel the same about WOMAD or any festival. I was like, yeah, there'll be loads of stuff I want to see, and then when you get to see it, it's sort of a lot of it's actually not all that great, to be honest. I saw Left Field on Friday night, who were great, but the PA was seriously underpowered for that kind of music, and you just didn't get any of that electronic music thump. I mean,
no way.
The vibration started about here. It should have been like right down in your feet, and it was because I think the main stage was geared up for more, world music stuff, which fair enough. Yeah. So it didn't really have the guts to deliver the proper electronic music experience. I saw a mad Belgian band who were kind of like biker klezmer, which was really good. And there was a brilliant French artist, singer. I'm trying to remember what her name was. WOMAD. What was her name? It's not Celine Dion. Oh, I forget. WOMAD French singer. If I do a search there, it might tell me.
Just be 1 second.
Camille. Yeah.
I'll be right back, Nick. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. She was really good. I mean, I'm just filling time here. I don't know if anyone's listening. So, but Camille, yeah, really good. And who else did I see? An Israeli kind of R&B/rap artist, girl singer and the whole set was put together on drum pads. So they were just playing pads and MPCs. That was quite good. Okay, so yeah, as I say, we've got Mr. Dave Spears, Mr. Matthew Hodson, and Gaz Williams will be coming in a bit. Have I got? Oh, we got a little bit of. In fact, I'll play a little bit of this because Gaz has done the Steinberg URRT review, which we'll be publishing soon. So, and this, as is customary, he did a little song.
Okay, I'm Gaz Williams. Hope you've enjoyed this. Catch you next time. Mind over matter when you haven't got a friend. Sit right down in a holly bush.
This is all recorded using the Steinberg URRT with the Rupert Neve preamp. Not preamps, the Rupert Neve transformers.
With the funny looks from the piglets and the hens and the weary Morris man. Cock Robin has been shot at noon. No mammal was aware by who. Was he shot for his skin or bread? Was he better off dead? I am the captain, and I'll take it off from here. I can't find who he was talking to, just a minute for his end. His death was natural, there's no conspiracy. So why don't you switch back the tune to the cheery one again? Ignite the Morris men. Cock Robin has been shot at noon. No mammal was aware by who. Was he shot for his skin or bread? Was he better off dead? Well, I can't afford a camera, I would have caught the shot. A television mogul would have given me all he's got. Instead I sit and wonder how Robin met his end. A hero now among us, our feather-footed friend.
Hooray.
Good lad.
It's become a tradition now. Whenever Gaz reviews a Steinberg audio interface, or at least 1 in 3, or maybe 2 in 3, that he produces a track based around it, and that's what he did. Full review will be coming out soon, which actually goes before that song. That's the play out, so there will be a lot of extra stuff. Yeah, well, I know that some of a lot of it was playback, but he had to record the thing and trying to video it as well, you know. But it was done all in the way that you would think so, but still a lot of work. Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see.
Hey Nick, would you be able to change my lower thirds to my website? Is that a biggie?
Are you probably not now we're live, because I can. It's the sort of thing that what happens is you end up with it, something gets cocked up, and then it's wrong for the whole show, and you can't do much about it.
No worries.
But I'll do it for next time if you let me know, for sure.
Okay, mate.
Yeah.
No worries.
You can speak it right on a piece of paper and hold it up to the camera. Or even better, let's have a look. I could probably.
I'll take it to my T-shirt or something.
Yeah, Matthew Hodson.
I'll write on the screen. Maybe I could do it in Ableton with the clips in colour.
That's the one, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, got you. Yeah, I could do that. We could do it next time for sure. But I've got it.
Thanks,
I've got it on the thing, as it were. So yeah.
Cheers.
Okay. I'm just going to go and grab a glass of water a sec. There you go. There's a bit of a preview to the Isotope competition words in there. You can enter early. 1, 2, yep. Okay. Nearly there. Lost the top of your head, Matt. There we go. Actually, we've still got 10 minutes. I know what I'm doing. Why I'm preparing. We're not going early, as far as I can tell. What else has happened? Yeah, so what have I got coming up this week? Actually, I got talked into doing the sound for my daughter's theatre summer school. They got a junior week and another week, so they let me off the fees but I have to do the sound. And it turns out that the only desk they've got there is a Yamaha LS09, which Yamaha desks are great, but you really do need to know what you're doing with them. And I don't know that desk at all. And I really don't fancy doing a 0 rehearsal, 14 radio mic theatre production on a desk I'm not familiar with. So I'm taking the X32 in with me. So he's getting a really good deal. He's getting me for 2 days and my desk. But I realised that it's really heavy and I've got to pick up. But the beauty of it, what I am discovering is the beauty of it is obviously it doesn't matter. I just store I've had the mic plot, so I've I've programmed all the scenes in. And all I got to do is finesse it. Hopefully that's all right. But that hence my questions to Charles last week as to whether he stores fader positions and that side of things in his song recalls, or whether he leaves that riding. And I wasn't sure which to do, but I guess I'd probably have to do that on the day and figure that out. Oh, is there a new Alessandro Cortini record out? Ooh,
and there's also been a bit of speculation about a new Aphex Twin.
Oh yeah, I must admit, I just never really gelled with the Aphex Twin thing. It's just always been a bit too abstract for me. Alessandro Cortini, though, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I like his stuff too.
Alessandro Cortini, Sonorio.
I think his previous ones were based around Buchla works.
A lot of them have been. Home of Sonorio.
Yeah, I wonder what this one's going to be like.
New record. 27th now available. Oh, might have to just have a look at that. Have a quick listen. That sounds very Buchla and Corti. Yep.
Okay.
There are those Alessandro Cortini chord progressions that we love and know. I think he's brilliant because he's still got the pop thing without being squeaky. You know, it's still got weight and heft and
dark and
dark.
moody.
Yeah, that there's that. I'm trying to remember what the name of. There's one track that he did off the last album, or might have been 2 albums back, where it's him and the vocal is him in a hoodie singing in a load of light bulbs. And the mix on that is just a work of... I don't know how on earth he managed to get it all into that track. What was it called? The Alessandro Cortini thing. It was called Enough. I love that track. I'm going to have to try and find it now. Alessandro Cortini, I think it's called Enough. Had Enough, I think. I've got to find it. Oh, yeah.
I know what.
This way, I cannot believe how he managed to get all of this mid-range into a track. It's astonishing. It's amazing. I mean, because it's all mid-range. I mean, there's some bass in it, but it's just there's so much mid-range information in this. And you get towards the end, and you just think, how? I don't know how he managed to mix that. I think it's an absolute genius piece of music, that, and it's really harsh, but it's also all there, and it's astonishing. I don't know how he did that. I've asked him
wonder
about
how involved he is with the final mix on that. I presume he's with it all the way through.
I think so. I seem to remember talking to him about it, and I can't remember what he said, but I think he said he did a lot, and I just said I can't believe how you managed to mix that, because I mean it must have been so fatiguing for a start, because it's really honky, but it's all there, and that's the thing I find about it. It's a very specific soundscape, but it's still all there. It's genius. I think he did it in Logic. I think because a lot of the vocoder was in Logic, I think he said.
Oh,
from
interesting.
What I recall, yeah. It's funny that, isn't it? Logic always seems, people always keep mentioning some of the instruments and effects in Logic, and some of those are now 15, 20 years old, and they still stand up.
It's like when the new John Hopkins single dropped a while ago. I was like, what is that synth sound? And he's just running it through the vocoder in Ableton. And I'm just like, oh, obviously when you hear it and you go, oh, okay. Sounds great though.
I'm going to have to put that up there. We need to plug the Alessandro Cortini album, because he's brilliant. Wow, 9 tracks released 3 or 4 days ago. I must put something up about that. There we have a sort of frozen Gaz.
Oh, is that frozen?
Your bandwidth is looking a little. It might just be connecting. It's a little bit. Wave your arms about.
Oh.
Yeah,
I don't want that thing to happen. I don't want that thing to happen again, where the wasps
bees.
took over.
Yeah. Yeah,
video
that was
bees.
pretty full on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we seem to have
scared me.
everyone, and I think we've got Dave. Have we got Dave? Dave's fiddling with
Dave
his
the Rave.
Dave and
fiddling
his
with his
master
909.
lube.
Is he going to pop up some pounding beats?
Yeah, give us something, Dave.
Looks
Give
like
us a
it.
wow.
We'll watch while you squirm under the camera on live streaming.
Is that all right, Nick? Vocal and video okay?
Yeah, seems to be fine.
Yeah. Okay, grand. I've got quite a lot of light coming in. That's all right, though.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, let's see what's going on there. So Dave's, I don't know whether it's feeding into something, but we're not hearing anything. Hello.
Hello.
Ah, there we go. we were expecting that when you came online there was going to be some banging Moog / 909 stuff going on.
Ready?
Yeah.
Can you hear that?
Yeah. Ah, check that out. Nice. Thank you, Dave.
I'll be randomly inserting that.
Randomly inserting and good to see, Dave, that there was not a 4 on the floor bass drum there. I'm very much appreciative of that. Or maybe there was. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, well, that's not quite. Well, never mind. We can work that out. All right, let's do a show. I think we've got like a minute or two to. Let me just come back to my Facebook streaming page so that we can make sure it all goes live. Yeah, I think it's all going to be all right. Excellent. Right, I'll hit record and then we'll press all the relevant buttons. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Standing by.
I'm never gonna be.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk, episode 543. Today, recording live at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, the 1st of August. The 1st of August. Gosh, here we go. We're getting into the serious summer months, although we don't care. We've had loads of summer. Although I was at WOMAD this weekend. I went to a festival, and this was the first break, which happened to be the first 2 days of rain in 8 weeks. So yeah, it was rained off, and I retired hurt and left on Sunday morning rather than stay till Monday morning because it was wet and cold and windy. How about that? I mean, what are the chances? Anyway, it was good fun. This is a podcast dedicated to electronic music production, software, hardware, recording, controllers, software. I've said that already. Lots of things to do with the kind of ecosystem surrounding recorded and live performed music. Maybe veering more towards the electronic side, but it can vary depending on what the news is of the week. And I want to say thank you very much to everybody for joining us. Hello to everybody in the YouTube chat room. If you want to subscribe, you'll get notified when we're live and you can join our chat room, the fulsome chat room, I think I would like to say, as I often do. Let me see, we've got a decent number of people in there. We've also got our IRC chatties. You can get to those via sonicstate.com/live. I want to say also thank you to Isotope, who will be providing a prize for this week's show. The prize is, of course, Isotope Vocal Synth 2, the new vocal processing that's been updated from Vocal Synth 1, although it was only called Vocal Synth then. Lots and lots of great features on that. We'll get into that a little bit later on. I want to say thank you for joining us, everybody, and also welcome to our guests. And we'll start over here with Mr. Dave Spears, who's over there, GeForce Software in the... It's not a synth cave, really, now. It's a sort of synth shed. Is that fairer? Shed doesn't seem like quite the right word. Barn. Let's go with barn. I like the idea of barn.
Nice.
Barn. Shed. Synth barn. Yeah. It's like a book barn, but filled with synths. Dave Spears, GeForce Software, of course, and synth aficionado. Look, he's got his credentials all laid out behind him right there. 909 to his left, and is that 55? It is the 55, not the .com, isn't it?
No, 55. And above that, I don't think you can see it. It's the little 100M, which is fantastic. You can just see
Absolutely.
the bottom of it. But yeah, combination of those three. Kick in.
Excellent. And you've been busy, as I know. I saw pictures. You had a visit from Mr. Rich Hilton, who came over to see you, and other luminaries.
Yeah, that was cool. Well, you came, first of all. That was
a lovely visit.
We rolled out the VIP carpet for Nick. We really did. We got go-karts and things like that. So we took Nick out on go-karts and old cars and things. This is the kind Nick got the sort of star treatment. Any kind of A-listers who come here get that kind of treatment. So
I was flattered.
Nick got that. And then, Rich played a gig in Henley, which is a very strange, it's like Henley Festival. It's super posh. And I went down to see him at Soundcheck, picked him up, brought him back here, spent a really good afternoon, early evening with him, dropped him back down there, then went to the gig, and he'd secured a couple of VIP passes, mainly so that my missus could go on stage for the last number of the gig, which is what they do for every gig. And that was hilarious because she started off behind Rich, dancing around like a lunatic, and then decided she was going to edge next to Niall. So she kind of kept tipping me the wig. Anyway, it was hilarious because after a while, the kind of people on stage get ushered off and the band are left on there. And I'd lost her, and I was like, I texted her, "Where are you?" She was on the riser with the brass section.
Sneakily joined the band. So she was officially the last person to leave the stage, right?
Yeah, she loved that. She was dancing right till the bitter end. And then, we had a load of people from Novation and, Chris Huggett, which was, wow.
The legendary
so Chris
Chris
was
Huggett.
here. Yeah, amazing. And obviously, it's sad, but Chris's old partner in the whole Wasp company, he died about a month ago. And we knew him. And, so that was a really interesting conversation about the old days. And then, obviously, post-EDP, all about Oscar. And then, actually, I got to say, my favourite story was when he started talking about him and David Cockrell, who was the EMS guy who went on to Electro-Harmonics. Both got seconded by Akai after the demise of the Oxford Synthesizer Company. And they were the two people who really developed the S1000. And the story of them drinking in Japan was just brilliant. So, and hopefully he's coming back again. Anyway, it was a real moment because obviously we've got the Wasp and the Spider and the Wasp Deluxe and obviously Oscar. And he was just kind of playing and noodling around, telling us.
Was he any good? Because so often that happens in that case. You get the synth legends show up and they just cannot play for toffee. You know, they're just the designer. You know, they're not connected it in the same way as like a player would be. So sometimes you just sort of think, obviously the person who designs the synth is going to be able to play it like a beast, and sometimes they can't. Yeah,
it was a weird one. Yes, he can play, but the Wasp was quite amusing because, as anybody in the UK knows, it's been really, really hot. There were about 9 people in this room, and the Wasp touch keyboard was quite sweaty, so it kept sort of leaping around. I was like, sounds very proggy, Chris. Anyway, he was brilliant, utterly brilliant, and that was a bit of a kind of special day for us, definitely. And hopefully we'll see him again.
Well, Dave, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for joining us too. Obviously, Dave Spears, GeForceSoftware.com. Do check them out. I need a bit more light on my camera, I think. I'm all right. We also have Mr. Gaz Williams, who's there in Bristol. Gaz Williams, of course, bass player, producer, music technologist. You're looking very healthy and hearty. Have you been out festivaling as well?
No, that's why.
Maybe
that is why. Yes. Oh no! How was WOMAD? Did it get wet?
It was very, very wet. But not the whole time. The worst thing is it was just very, very windy. So you spend the whole time wondering if your tent's still going to be up when you get back, which isn't much fun.
Wow. Did you see that footage? I think of a festival. Was it in Germany with all the tents flying in like a whirlwind in the air at some festival? It's amazing. I have to try and find a link. For
Yeah,
it.
I know.
It's
That was a few years ago, wasn't it? Was that, or was it?
Oh, was
this
it? Right, I've only just seen it. I've just seen it. But like behind me in the room, I think we can just see a Mr. Richard Alpin, synth networker extraordinaire.
Ah, there we go. Just the top of his head. Hello, Richard.
In the back there, yeah. He's popped over. What else is interesting? Actually, I'm working on top secret project at the moment. That's been taking up all my time. So
Jolly good.
Things will be revealed soon. But yes,
right. Okay. Well, we look forward to that.
Happy to be here.
Good. Glad to have you as well. And we've
you.
also got Mr. Matthew Hodson, who's there in his modular equipped studio. Where he's are you still working on your EP, Matt?
Yes, very much so. In fact, I was just saying earlier, I've been doing some live streaming all last week because I just started from scratch. I pulled everything out, and I just at some points I just turn on all the cameras in here and just do a live stream out and talk through what I'm doing and how I'm building the sounds up and what I'm inspired by and just my process as I'm going along, really. So I think I did 3 or 4 live streams last week, just randomly. They're on my YouTube channel all ready to go. I've called the series "Come Patch with Me."
Oh, very good, very good. Are you finding that it's assisting in your creativity, or are you using it as an excuse not to get on with things?
Well, I only turn it on at the good bit, so I'm filtering out the long hours where you'll sat there going, "Why haven't I got any sound?" I think it is fueling my creativity. If anything, it's reasserting and making it clear why I'm doing particular things, where I'm usually going to for my sounds, and then also creating a bit of a diary so I can go back to that as well and look at things. But I also got some test pressings in the post today of my first 12-inch double A side that's coming out on Fat Cat Records. So I've had to go and buy a record player. And
I remember the days. So you've got the white label test pressings. Are they the acetates that will only stand up to a few plays before they sort of wear out?
Yeah, exactly. So it's my first time
old school
anything's gone out on vinyl. So it's interesting hearing your mixes translated and cut to vinyl, isn't it? I mean,
I don't know. It's been a long time. And is that when you realised that massive stereo bass patch was perhaps not such a good idea, right?
Yeah. And I am actually, if you watch my live streams this week, they've all been about pretty much stereo bass because I'm just big on stereo bass. I've got like 4 or 5 different bass oscillators going on here, and all of them are going through Strymon reverbs and delays as well to make them even wider in stereo. So, yeah, bye.
Yeah,
when it gets cut to vinyl.
Yes. How many premium replacement cutting heads are you going to have to stump up for that? Yeah.
Yes. I don't know.
For those perhaps don't know what I'm talking about, the mono of the bass is very important because you get the biggest amount of movement in the cutting head. The cutting head in a vinyl plant is the most expensive bit when you're mastering, and massive movements can cause it to kind of break or make the grooves too wide, so the needle jumps out, so it's very hard to press. So what they often do is mono the bass below certain frequencies so that deviation is stereo, because if you're stereo it's going to have it's difficult to deal with. So that's old school mastering techniques, in case that anyone was wondering, which you're probably not, because I don't know, vinyl is becoming more popular these days though, isn't it? I mean, definitely.
I've just bought a load of new vinyl, and it's so good actually to hear stuff that I've just been listening to digitally for years, and I've just gone and bought things out on vinyl and just checking them out, just as for me now start a little bit of a reference point as well. It's been a really interesting experience actually. Just things going out on vinyl and listening to it, and like you say, checking out how things are mastered and cut to vinyl and just how different they sound. It's been a really interesting experience.
But something I always say about vinyl though is that it's such a lot of effort relatively to put a record on the platter that the 18 or so minutes you tend to let it play for. But with digital, you tend to you don't have that same sort of effort of putting the record on. so you have a much shorter attention span. You're much more ready to, to jump to something else and not let the whole kind of side play or whatever. So I think that's an often overlooked aspect of vinyl, that the amount of effort for 18 minutes is, to change it, you tend to just let the whole side play. I think that's something that's often overlooked.
No, that's a good point. I mean, it's definitely, we've spoken about it before. It's like when you're putting a record on, you're often putting it on like an old school record because you want to sit down and listen to it. You're not going to be doing the washing up in the other room or doing something else, because you'd have to go and change the record every once in a while. Or, sometimes you do skip the tracks. People do that as well. But yeah, it's a lot. You're right. It's a lot more effort. Speaking of old school, this video came up to my attention. It's not particularly new, but I just thought
a lot can be said about Rihanna and Drake's hit song Work. It completely owned the charts in 2016. Its dancehall beat and endless repetition were the ultimate example of where the sound of pop was going. It did everything most top 40s hits were doing, except for one thing. It faded out.
I thoroughly recommend you watch that because it's a very interesting piece. Her documentaries are excellent, and this is yet another one. And it kind of... before she started this, she thought the fade out was a bit of a cop out. She thought you should actually have an ending, but then she started to look into the history of it and the way that it all came together. And there's some really interesting facts in there. I'll drop a few of them in there before I take it out to the panel. First of all, the first fade out apparently was in 1918. By Gustav Holst, who wanted to create a slow, the fading of Neptune, the piece of women's choir. So he put the choir in another room when they were performing, and then got the somebody to gradually shut the door, so it got further and further away and smaller. And that's a sort of very manual fade. And then also fade outs were generally introduced 50s and 60s because radio was very strict on the length of, certainly American radio, the length of music you could play. So quite often DJs would actually fade them out, and it would always, quite often it would be not necessarily at the right point in the record. So labels started to introduce the fade out so that they had the control over it, and it would generally be on the chorus out. That would be how it went. Another fantastic fact for you, George Martin's Strawberry Fields, the Beatles production, which fades out and fades back in again, we all thought was really arty. Actually, what it was, there was a really dodgy bit of playing, and he wanted to keep the outro, but obviously didn't do the edit, so he faded it out, missed the dodgy bit, and then faded it back in for a reprise. That's a great story. Absolutely awesome. So, fade outs. I'm going to come to you first, Dave, because you and I are of the age when pretty much the fade out was the only way to end a record or a recorded piece of music, right?
Yeah, I didn't realise it had gone away.
Well, that's because you don't listen to any modern music, mate.
No, I don't listen to this contemporary music stuff. No, it's weird. You see, when I listen to like some of my favourite tracks with proper bands live playing, they always rock out on the outro, and those are the bits I love, the little licks and stuff that bass players put in, and because they're just, job done, now let's have fun till the end of the track. And they're all those nuggets, and I've been in countless sessions where, the ends just run on because, forever really, because that it's going to be a fade. And there'll be little bits that people have played, and I'm like, oh man, can we just take that little bit and put it somewhere in the song? Because they're the fun bits where everybody's just relaxed and is just jamming away. So I'm all for a fade out.
Interesting. Okay. Matthew Hodson. I mean, when you're when you're doing modular based stuff, I mean, there is no ending really, is there? Because a lot of it's sequenced or clocked. So if you stop it, the chances are it's not going to stop on a very specific sort of ending punctuation. It'll just kind of fall apart.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, when I watched this video, I was thinking about how I use fade outs and fade ins inside the music rather than at the end. So, for example, I might use an envelope to close over time very slowly a filter, or just slowly close a filter, and then that sound will grow and it'll arrive and it'll stay there, and then it'll eventually go again, and that'll overlap with other sounds fading in and out. And that's pretty much how I compose stuff using the modular, to be fair. And these you know, some of the jams and some of the compositions can go on for 7-10 minutes, that kind of thing. And then when it comes to the end, I mean, in this sort of electronic world, it's using the high pass filter, just taking away all the low end from stuff and kind of DJing it out, or, you know, or low passing it, or whatever, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's very much everything. Most of the sound sources, it's all about bringing sounds in and out and fading them in and fading them out, particularly some of the really sort of heavy, dark techno, industrial techno, Berlin techno sort of stuff. A lot of that is, you know, really long songs, and it's just sounds just growing, developing, and then going back out again at just over time. So that video just made me think about that, and actually, again, understanding my approach to when I'm composing using this sort of equipment. It's completely different. The other thing I was thinking about is because I also do stuff for TV and adverts, and there's just obviously a fade out is not gonna, or at least I don't think there's ever been a fade out on a TV advert. You know, they want it to be, you're using that amount of time. We've got like 30 seconds here, bam, and it's going to be loud all that way. It'd be interesting actually if I ever did deliver something where I did a 5-10 second fade out on an advert. Can you imagine it? I think it'd actually make people maybe turn around and go, hey, and, you know, look at the TV more and take more notice of that. I don't know. It'd be quite interesting.
Well, it's interesting because some of those things actually, because I noticed I can't remember what the ad was recently. There was an ad and it just didn't have any sound. There was no sound whatsoever, and it was all done with text overlays, and it made you sort of go, huh? Because you think, is there something wrong with the telly? Because that just seems like such. Yeah. So maybe there is room for something along those lines. Definitely. That is interesting.
Yeah,
so
I just wanted.
I wanted to ask you. So, do you take essentially an entire part? So maybe you've got a line that's going into, you know, it's got its own envelope and own filter movement, and then you put that into a secondary envelope with a VCA on it that just sort of fades it in and out that way. Is that how you do that?
Instead of doing a secondary envelope, I'll use my hands. I'll just do it manually.
Okay.
I've got, you know, part of the reason I did this was for it to be tactile and to get in there and actually use my hands and have that human interaction with it. So I'll grow sounds and I will reduce sounds according to, I suppose, responding to other sounds that are growing and dying away, and if the hi-hats suddenly come in or are removed or something like that.
Okay. All right. No,
I also, in that video, they also mention to get a really good fade out is that instead of doing a stereo fade out, they would fade out individual parts at different levels, so the vocals might go quicker.
This is kind of what.
Yeah,
I wanted to talk about,
because I've always done it with the fingers on the fader or drawing it in, you know, and I think the drawing it in is not so good these days.
Creative fade outs from the multi-tracks is so much fun, and like doing things where, you know, you're bringing out all things at different levels, but also maybe increasing the reverb send as it's on this way out, so things are going into more of an ambient, you know. So really getting creative with that fade out, I think, is just a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and I think it's something that people maybe overlook. They put it on the fade in you know, the mastering stage or whatever, but actually, you know, taking it all out and being very creative. But also that thing with fade outs as well can be very tantalizing. A very famous example is in the end of Good Vibrations, you know, where you get the theremin bit. It just ramps up and it's a really exciting, and then it's gone. You know, it's just like, oh, that lovely, amazing moment, and it's a fleeting moment. And funnily enough, there's a connection there. The Janelle Monáe's latest album, Dirty Computer, which is a great album, great artist, features Brian Wilson, actually, funnily enough. The opening song, Dirty Computer, just as the song's going, it goes into this lovely section and it just fades out. And it's just like, oh, come back. So the fade can be used as that way of just
tantalizing,
tantalizing thing. And so I think the creative and the, you know, that emotional aspect that you can introduce with a fade out, I think is very cool. I mean, that documentary, I agree, is very, very good. And another thing that she talks about, though, is that people tapping along with the fade out will they did an experiment where people tapped along to a song that ended abruptly or a song that faded out, and people carried on tapping along after the song had faded out, that the song stays with you as it kind of goes. You sort of so rather than it being something out of necessity, it can be something that does have, an artistic contribution to the track as well, which, and as I say, doing crafty and interesting things and just having little new elements just arriving just as it's just about to vanish. But here's an interesting thing I'd like to ask the panel. What's your favorite fade out shape? Me, I love an S shape. Go on.
That's a good question. Well, I'll defer. Matt.
Oh, it depends on what you're doing, but yeah, you can't beat a bit of the old S shape, can you? I mean, you can't go wrong with that. I must admit, I tend to use filtering probably more than I do for volume fade out. I just quite like taking away the top end a bit first, actually, and making it sound like it's got quieter that way, and then I might then reduce the volume.
That's an interesting idea. I'm just trying to think. I mean, we're so used to drawing the fade in. I mean, I generally go for the what's that? The linear curve, isn't it?
Exponential linear.
Exponential is bowed out, whereas linear logarithmic is bowed in. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Logarithmic. Yeah. So I mean, but I agree. I mean, actually getting it, because I remember doing this in the past where when one would be mastering to DAT, it would be doing the fade and then think, oh no, I've messed it up. And you'd have to go all the way back to the beginning and reset, and just, before edits and all that stuff, you mess the fade up. And there was always the joke about the fade engineer. I don't know, Dave, do you draw your fades in, or do you like to have a manual hands-on bit? Do you kind of get a bit of, lumbering up?
Yeah, definitely limbering up for the hard fade, which is just pressing stop. No, it depends. It really does depend. I do like the S curve, but I do like the exponential as well. God, this sounds really nerdy, doesn't it? Exponential. And
come on, this is what we're all about. This nerd on. It's
the end of the track, but it's things like, for me, it's really. I mean, it depends. But if you're working with a chorus fade, it tends to be linear because. In fact, it tends to be more of a curve, because you got to get that. You got to get that at the end of that chorus, because that's crap if you've like
missed the last phrase.
In the old days, we just doing it. And I got the beginning of the chorus again. Oh God. So yeah, it depends. But I can listen to. It's funny actually. I was thinking about that while we were all chatting. Things like John Hopkins. I can listen to just his fades. At times, there's a brilliant one he does with that. Who's the King Creosote? Starboard Home, and there's just this chord that just kind of continues. And I'll do, I'll grab the missus sometimes and go, just listen to this before we go to bed, and it's just the fade.
Lovely. I wonder.
Blue Nile.
Yeah, good fades. I wonder, what do you think is the natural, if you put a person with a finger on the fader and you say, can you fade that out? What is the shape, the natural human shape of a fade out that they would do? Because it's unlikely to be linear, isn't it? Because that would be just a straight 45 degrees from top to bottom. What's the actual fade? Do you think it's more likely to be a logarithmic? I mean, what's your sort of the human...
I think so.
Faders are tapered though, aren't they? The fader itself could be tapered.
True.
So depends on
that's
fader
true.
It is. But I've done those manual fades and like had a little panic just at the end, and just made a little kind of annoying little jerk, just nice smooth faded down, and then just a little spoggy little panic.
But the other thing that came out, they were interviewing a couple of people, and now what's happening is there's endings. People put endings on tracks a lot, but often the ending is sort of almost edited on. It's not written in. They just kind of go, what's it going to be? It's going to be a tom into the reverb, or is it going to be a reverb tail, or is it going to be a or whatever. There are so many different musical kind of ways of ending tracks, but quite often in modern production they're not built into the actual performance of the track. They're just sort of maybe bolted on at the end. And is it Susan Rogers who's the Prince, the lady who used to work with Prince, and she was saying she listens to things, she goes, it just sounds like it's been pasted on, it sounds really wrong. So there is an art to an ending, and that's an art in itself.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the things I'm just trying to think all the different ways I've ended tracks. I'm quite keen on overloading the mix bus and it just turned it into distortion and then quick ending like that. So you suddenly just get this blast of distortion and it goes down. Just sending stuff into big reverb and then just letting the reverb just fade away over like 10 seconds. There's so many different creative ways, isn't there, to end a track?
The cliff drop, the greatest cliff drop I think in history is the end of "I Want You, She's So Heavy" on Abbey Road. You know, sort of it's a building and it's nasty and it's dark and it's gnarly and it gets and then it just goes.
It's a burp. Exactly, and you're suddenly like, where have I just been in my head for the past 3 minutes or something while you've been listening to that?
Like when it's
left alone with your own thoughts. The cliff drop ending. That sounds
That's a
like
good
a good
shout.
title.
That is a good shout, Gaz, because I think that is a perfect demonstration of a track that works without a fade out. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Yes.
It builds and builds, and that guitar distorts and distorts, and then it just ends.
Yeah. It's the Rainbow.
Yes.
Right.
Oh no,
on Spirit of Eden.
Spirit of Eden.
I'm afraid I'll have to bow to your better knowledge. Anyway, but we'll stop it there. Let's break things up a bit and have a message from our friends at Isotope.
If you want a comedy one,
oh yeah, no, go, Dave, go before we go.
a good comedy end. It's just a vinyl scratch. You can get away with that anywhere in the song. It's a comedy end. You know, the old needle going. That's perfect.
I suppose that kind of works. Yeah,
I've done that.
Or the deck stop. That's a bit cheesy, though, isn't it? That is Most are, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, let's have a word from our friends at Isotope. This is Isotope's Vocal Synth 2, which, as we know, has been out for a little while now and comes with a whole load of new modules. It's got Biovox module, massively improved vocoder, the CompuVox module, TalkBox, loads more effects, a massively improved vocoder, more bands, more controllability, intelligibility, vocal tract modelling with Biovox, more effects, as I said, more presets. The effects are now reorderable, new GUI. The whole thing is designed to be able to give you loads more potential for mangling and producing your vocals to a much higher level. In fact, we have a competition. We asked, actually last week, we asked for what was the hashtag last week? Creative Vocals. And we've got a winner who is TennisDcom, who, super hot vocal synth, creative vocals, vocal synth 2 at Sonicstate and at Isotope Inc. The winner from last week is somebody called Tenis.com, TENISD.com. So if you want to get in touch, I think they're from Latvia. Please do, and we will get Isotope to drop you a copy of Vocal Synth 2. And if you want to enter this week's competition, we're looking for the hashtag vocal production. That's one word, and Vocal Synth 2. That's two hashtags, vocal production and Vocal Synth 2. To at Sonicstate and Isotope Inc. Yeah, it's a Twitter competition. You need to enter Twitter, but it's nice and easy, and we just pick from all the hashtags. We do a search for that. So if you want to enter the competition, drop those hashtags onto Twitter, and we'll pick up something from next week, and you could be in with a chance. And remember, if it's summer, lots of people are on holiday, so you stand a higher percentage chance of actually winning if you enter at the moment. So well worth a punt. Doesn't cost you anything, and you get a great prize from Isotope. Thank you very much for them providing the prize even. Thank you very much. Right, what was the next bit? Yes, I got a great video to intro this one. I wonder what you'll think of it. This is Catherine Lansbury, who's a sort of pianist and comedian, and this is her little part of a show where she does a piece on guitars, and it's a medley of, obviously this is Aha. There are lots of people who do guitar medleys, thinking that many of these tracks were created on guitars, which I don't think they were. And the audience are very appreciative. And it goes on, and there's a number of tracks there. But this, the reason I put this in there is because there's a rather funny piece on hardtimes.net, which is kind of a comedy thing, and it's guitar sales down for the 425th straight month for whoever it is that monitor these things. And it's just a great fun bit of writing. In fact, there's a great piece in it How could we know that consumers? How could we know that consumers of a novelty instrument would dry up so quickly and so violently? Asked Danilo Zukas, owner of the struggling Keytar warehouse, all keyed up. And there are various other amusing parts for everyone, but it does rather bring in the whole notion of the Keytar. As we're seeing, there are various different alternative controllers. The Keytar used to be the thing, but it almost seemed like you had to be wearing some kind of like space age spangly suit or some kind of special uniform to be able to get away with it. You know, a regular person can't really wear a Keytar. You have to have like a jacket with those massive hoopy kind of shoulders or spandex, and it feels like maybe that's part of the problem. I don't know, but Keytars in general, now you see them playing. Who's it? Lewis Cole plays a Keytar, but he has his on a keyboard stand, so he uses. So he's kind of like he's hedged his bets there a little bit.
You can see the person who's written this article is old and out of touch. Keytars are in. They are the thing. I tell you what, at festivals, Keytar has lost its kind of thing. It's lost its kind of joke thing. The Keytar is like really hip. I go to festivals and stuff, and you see a lot of people rocking a Keytar now. So I think they need to get with it, man. The Keytar is happening. And long may it live. The Keytar's a good thing in my book.
Okay, all right. Have you got one, Gaz?
No.
No. Yeah. Just checking. If someone's so keen.
I velcro the cord bot to my chest sometimes.
That sounds painful.
I have got a Keytar. My OP1. I've got the little strap adapters for my OP1, and I have gigged with my OP1, albeit once, and broke my OP1 in the process, needing a new audio board. But yes, so I have.
Keytar.
So,
well, they keep releasing. Roland keep releasing updates and new versions, and I think Akai. Or M Audio, I forget, released one quite recently. Somebody sounds like they might be playing one there somewhere. I was going to come to you, Dave, because with all those keyboards, that's not a Keytar. I'm sorry, it's got Keytar straps, I suppose, so it's close enough.
Yeah, it's about the nearest to a Keytar I could ever get.
I was just going to say though, why haven't you got a Keytar? I mean, does a Keytar have to have a mod grip to be a Keytar properly?
Yeah, I think so. I used to have. When I used to play in a funk band, they hired me a Moog Liberation,
which weighs a ton.
It is the most unbelievably heavy thing, and honestly, there is nothing worse than I wasn't podgy or middle-aged back then, but I was just thinking there is probably nothing worse than a podgy middle-aged white bloke with a Keytar, and unless he's wearing a keyboard tie as well. That's probably the ultimate.
And
thing.
A trilby.
No. Yes. Yeah, God, trilbies. Trilby playing keyboard player with a keyboard tie. No, I don't like them. I don't. I don't know why. They were probably good for about an hour in the 80s at some point. But
do you think that there's something distasteful, particularly maybe sort of understated sort of British sense of reserve, that it's just somehow kind of not the done thing to kind of walk to the front of the stage and present your synthesizer facing the audience? Definitely. It just feels somehow wrong.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Boo.
And all keyboard players should be tucked away at the back, being earnest and very sensible, preferably wearing glasses or something like that. Dressed all in black, and that's about it. Unless, of course, it was the 70s when they were wearing capes. I mean, Wakey gets away with the Keytar and comes down, and he goes down in the audience and. Actually, he walked past me and Chris once, and we just put our hands all over it and ruined it. But no, I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, George Duke looked cool with the Keytar, with the clavitar.
Yeah,
Frankenstein, Edgar Winter, Frankenstein. That's got to be the greatest Keytar performance.
But wasn't that just a clavinet strapped?
Yeah,
wasn't he just wearing a clavinet?
It was 2600, wasn't it?
Oh, was it 2600?
Oh, it was 26.
Yeah, he had a 2600.
Don't say that's not cool.
Well,
the 2600's reasonably cool, but at least he looked cool. I mean, he looked different, didn't he? You get away with it, Gaz. I mean, honestly, me stood at the front of the stage with the Keytar, they're just, everyone's just going to be going,
I'm just going to prove, this proves my point.
Find something.
I'm going to find a picture of Edgar Winter with the keytar because because I rest my case. He is wearing he's got spangles, or there's a clothing aspect to this, which is. But yeah, there we go.
Well, that was a series.
That looks incredibly. Whoa! Go Edgar. Okay, Matt. That's over to you now. Is there a Eurorack or modular equivalent to the keytar? Can you think of any sort of thing that anybody makes?
I've got to confess.
Oh my lord! Good for you, keytar owner.
There it is.
The cheesiest one available, I think.
That's a very mini keytar, isn't it?
You see, that's post-ironic. That works.
Yeah.
So, I've had this since I was a teenager. I think it belonged to a cousin of mine, and I bought it off her. And I just keep telling myself I haven't got a license to use it. I think you need a license to use one of these on stage, really, don't you? Or a cape at least. But no, I've never used it live. I don't think I've even used it in the studio. It just sits in the corner, and I just look at it sometimes and giggle.
It sort of looks a bit like a massive melodica, that one, doesn't it?
Oh, maybe it is.
Yeah,
maybe I got it wrong.
I go with that. Well,
I've got what does come to mind though is that the SH101 used to have a mod grip with it, which kind of turned it into that. And I think they go a bit more money on eBay these days if you've got the mod grip, ironically. But playing synths and stuff on stage, when I'm playing this, sometimes I play with a live drummer and doing some kind of like really heavy, distorted bass lines with drums and stuff. And I wish I had that freedom to move around the stage like a guitarist. And, I play guitar as well, played in rock bands, and I love rocking out, getting right up there in front of the audience. You're just stuck where you are, aren't you, with this, really, unless you push it around on a trolley or get one of these, I suppose.
Every time the keyboard player comes, gone.
No. I'm just thinking, I might convert to a keytar, because the thing is, there's been people in here filming me noodling on synths, and the old bald spot's getting a bit bigger on the back. And every time I see the rushes, I'm like, yeah, can you just pan it down a bit? And they're like, yeah, but we don't see you on the modular. Whereas if I was playing a keytar, they'd still see the front, wouldn't they? And they wouldn't see the old shiny flare on the back.
Crafty.
That's true, yeah. It's, keytar through necessity. Okay, there's another possible title. Keytar.
Medical.
I want to see the first person actually have a Euro rack, actually, as a keytar, with a full rack as well.
Do you think you could do one of those Waldorf KB units could do that?
Patching, yeah, and patching in with a keytar.
Alessandro Keytarni.
Keytarni, yeah. Which actually is a very good link there, Dave, because he's got a new album out. I'll just bring that in because this wasn't a topic, but he's got a new album out by Sonoio, which is his working title, his artist title. Brand new album, which is called Fine, and it's a 9-track album available on Bandcamp, Sonoio on Bandcamp. I love his stuff. I'm going to play a little bit. I don't know what. I've had a chance to listen to it. Oh, yeah. It's got that classic Cortini-ness, which I think is great because, as we know, Cortini, he uses a lot of Buchla, a lot of stuff in his mixes. And as I was saying before we came on the show, before we went live, I really love the way that he manages to fit so many synthesizers into so many synthesizer notes into his productions. It's a real art. It's quite difficult to do. Because obviously they all occupy quite a similar, the way he uses them, they occupy quite a similar frequency spectrum, but he somehow is able to do that. So do check that out. Yes. Anyway.
I wonder if he's got a keytar.
Well, I actually been to his house where we filmed quite an extensive tour of his tech rig, and I didn't see any keytars there. There may have been a mod grip on a 101. I'm pretty sure he had a 101, but I can't remember if it had the mod grip and whether it was positioned in a place that you could imagine it being easily retrievable. I didn't notice any extra length on the cables, for him to pick, because he started out life as a shredder. He was a kind of humbucker, double humbucker metal shredder. That was his kind of musical beginnings. So I could maybe he keeps that for his private moments where he doesn't let anybody know about that kind of stuff.
Just proving a point.
Oh yeah.
Yay!
That looks like a man bag.
Yeah.
Or a bus conductor.
Can you actually see how to play that? Or how would you play that? Look, don't you have to kind of look down? Yeah.
Tickets, please.
Just play all the white notes. Just play
Tickets, please.
A minor.
The only problem is you have to have a beard. You have to have a beard to do that, or be very slim, because otherwise you're just going to be like this the whole time, which isn't a very good look to most people of a certain
that's
age.
A good.
So it covers up all of that.
A use for my beard.
Another use for your beard. Right. What was that? Shocking news. Fade out. That was it. Precision Studio Live. Oh yeah, this was. Now let's find this. I saw this yesterday. So this was. I'll play a bit of this. This was Thomas Dolby in the Cloud, and he's basically. This was an event live in LA, where he's a really good. It's a great production. He's talking about the history of him using instruments and performing, and it's all done. It's all done using Roland Cloud stuff. So obviously he's promoting that thing, because the Roland Cloud, we've talked about it a couple of times, but they keep adding and adding and adding to the kind of list of instruments that you can now get in the Roland Cloud, which is a subscription thing. I mean, I'm a big fan of Thomas Dolby, but I was watching this and I was wondering, is that cool anymore? It just sort of felt like it's like when you get to a certain age and do that sort of thing, it sort of feels like there's a certain has-been element to it. I mean, not for me with Thomas Dolby, but I mean, perhaps for a lot of people it would be less relevant. But one thing he did talk about is he was saying, that I used to compose a lot on these synthesizers, and that they were very expensive and they were beautiful and they were still great. But as we've talked about with so many of these sort of synth luminaries, he was saying, like Peter Zinoviev, he's basically just all in the box now, because he can't be bothered with all of that electronics and tuning it and getting it fixed. And there's this element of the old school that have just kind of totally embraced the in the box vibe, whereas us young upstarts, by comparison, are sort of say, oh no, all has to be actual real analog stuff. But these guys are sort of saying, no, I'm totally with it. Dave, what do you reckon? I mean, Dolby's a really interesting character. I would absolutely love to meet him. I read his autobiography audio book, actually, where he's narrating, and it's really interesting. And the end of it, there's a fantastic track with him singing with Eddie Reader, and I was in floods of tears because it was so poignant. What do you think about this whole thing? A, Thomas Dolby, and B, the Roland Cloud. Let's try and keep both of those in, eh?
Well, I worked with Thomas on a load of beatnik stuff when he was doing that whole. And that was a pretty punishing schedule. It was a mad deadline. In fact, that's the first time I think I worked so solidly. I had a bottle at my desk that I weed in, and actually on occasions it was that mad that when I got up on one occasion I couldn't feel my legs. It was that insane. That was when he was doing that whole .com thing. So I was really interested after you read the book. I got the same audio book, and it was really good. And in fact, I had misjudged a lot of things that had gone on at that time, because there were instances where he seriously put his own hand in his pocket. The company was funded, it was a .com bubble boom thing, and there were times where things had gone wrong, where he put his hand in his pocket to make sure employees were paid and things like that. And I had no knowledge of that at the time, so I kind of looked at him again with a renewed admiration. I loved those early albums of his. I kind of lost a little bit of interest with Aliens Ate My Buick. Although when he played Budapest by Blimp on this, but for me it was a kind of LA bar band, and it just didn't.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I love Screen Kiss, and in fact, whenever we used to go to NAMM, I used to drive up into the Hollywood Hills and play Screen Kiss before we drove down to NAMM, and I'd make all the people who worked with us sit and listen to it. And it was amazing. And I thought he's a really good songwriter. I liked this. I mean, obviously some of the anecdotes he told in between are in the book, which again, I thoroughly recommend if anyone's vaguely interested, not only just in him, but that era of .com madness and, the 80s payola scandal and all the rest of it. However, where I felt it fell down, and honestly, I'm not disrespecting him in any way, was that he started talking about the Roland Jupiter 4, which obviously he wrote loads of stuff on. A friend of mine, Andy, who's been on the podcast, Andy Shillito, was his front of house guy for a couple of tours. And that Jupiter 4 kept breaking down, and he kept calling up going, have you got anything? Can we replace it with something more reliable and whatnot? But and then he would use sounds that weren't those real sounds. And it's a bit like, for me, it was a bit like going to see those kind of prog bands in the 80s who had used D50s for sounds that were previously created on a Mini Moog and stuff like that. And it was just like, oh, no. And where it did work was when he started using samples, when he was triggering samples, because it's just got that kind of nostalgic. I mean, it was obviously from the multi-track, so it's got that feel, that vibe. And then he'd kind of play these chords, and I'd think, well, that's not the same sound that you used on Europa and the Pirate Twins. It's a fairly close facsimile, but it's not. It doesn't evoke the same kind of goosebump response that it would have done. However, I did like it when he played just the piano on Budapest by Blimp. And that's all I've got to say, really.
That will do. That's plenty. Thank you very much. But yeah, I know what you mean. That I'm considering he was such a pioneer in synthesizer sounds, and some of them seemed a bit carelessly thrown together. You know, it's like, oh, that'll do. You know, rather than. Because as we know, I mean, it's not like they're not capable of it. I mean, he could have, maybe it was just rushed, and because he didn't maybe he didn't use the Roland Cloud for all of this stuff, and he hadn't had a chance to program it to the level of detail that he would have liked. You know, often these things are very rushed, very last minute. People are busy. You know, they're not going to spend months recreating their classic tracks just for one little demo in LA where they're probably getting paid, you know, a nominal fee. So I suppose there's that aspect to it, But yeah, it's At the Speed of Sound, isn't it? The album, the book's called. Is that what it's called? Life at the Speed of Sound, I think it's called. It's well worth checking out. Gaz, I don't know whether you're a big Dolby fan. I mean,
I got into him on Aliens at My Buick, which I still maintain I think is one of the greatest late 80s productions. Just for that late 80s, you know, it's like a kind of over the top 80s, late 80s production in many ways. You know, it's kind of as much as he's kind of more, you know, I loved Hyperactive, and what's the album? The Flat Earth. Yeah, it's really, really good. But I sort of, I remember those as hits when they were hit singles. She Blinded Me with Science. So really, really innovative and great. But I thought Aliens at My Buick was something else. I absolutely loved it. I thought every song on it was brilliant. You know, the keys to her Ferrari and just all this like bonkers stuff. So perhaps I was at the right age for it, but I absolutely loved that. And I do think it's worth seeking out. And it does, of course, have the mega tune Budapest by Blimp on it as well. And, you know, I think that album is actually overlooked personally. I think it's really,
I've got
good.
it. I know. I bought it on vinyl.
Airhead.
It's a great album.
Loads of tunes on there. But I mean, obviously, this does. I mean, without getting drawn into the whole subscription model thing, because we have done that before, and I know that, you know, many of us are not into it. Me, you know, I don't like it particularly, and I do wonder if that does kind of connect up, though, that the relationship that you have with an instrument that you own is something which is kind of a profound and special relationship, and that if you're only ever subscribing to something, whether that is a relationship that you won't really develop by the virtue of it being this kind of transitory relationship, that you don't actually own it, you just essentially have got permission to use it for an amount of time. You know, I think you know, instruments are this thing. There is something very special about owning something, and you know, so this, you know, whether you won't ever really develop those, you know,
or it's harder to develop. Might be harder to develop for some people. I don't know. I guess I don't know. Matt, I mean, you're teaching a lot of people, and they're presumably learning mainly on software. So I mean, that's something they have to learn to develop, and you must have to learn to develop to convey that level of excitement and sort of interactivity with those instruments. So I mean, you know, the cloud thing. I mean, I will say that the subscription model with Roland, I mean, they are fulfilling their promise. They're adding more and more and more stuff to it, so you are getting additional value each time. You know, it's not just a sort of, it seems like less of a bad idea and more of a possibly good idea as they add more and more stuff. But I wondered what your thoughts were about just this topic generally.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. What is cool about the software side of things, whether you subscription or not, is my students have suddenly got access to all these great synthesizers and turns them away from maybe the more contemporary ones like Serum or something like that, which are just bonkers. I mean, they're great, but they're bonkers. And if you go back to some of these, like the System 100 and the 101, and students are using them and trying to get the most out of something, maybe that hasn't got wave folding and a million modulation source destinations and things like that. It's quite an eye opener for them to actually start understanding and actually really understanding synthesis, rather than just being bombarded with something that is just completely patch this to patch that, and it can, any point at any time, loads of destination, loads of modulation. The thing about this event for me, I think, was that it was really interesting hearing his stories, but all of his stories seem to come from almost what Gaz was on about, this sort of love for finding his instruments, sitting down with them and learning them and pushing them and pulling them and getting things out of them that were really intrinsic to his way of working, and that inspired him. There was, I forget which synthesizer it was, but he was using I think he was just using an LFO to kind of sequence the filter on it, and that inspired him to play in a particular way. And I think those are the magic moments that we have where we go, oh yeah, there's something, I've got a connection there, I'm going to run with this. And you can suddenly, that before you know it, you start building a track from that, and you're understanding exactly what it's doing, which you can then apply to the next synthesizer you move on to as well.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, because he was talking about Jupiter 4 to begin with, and he had a retrigger, and he was saying that provided the kind of the bass, the main track for the, like him sitting down at the piano and throwing the chords down. That would be where he built the song structure, and then would track on top of that to build the rest of the music, and that was kind of interesting. Yeah,
what I do like about the Roland Cloud though is that after 12 months you get given something, you get a plugin. I think you can choose it, and it's yours for life. So even if you are subscribing, you do end up with a plugin that actually ends up yours. One of the things that I do like actually on the subscription front is the sample based cloud stuff. There's Loop Masters have got the Loop Cloud. I use that. That's just great for just grabbing particular things down. And F9 Audio, I think, are doing some interesting stuff as well with that. That's where I'm really interested in subscription, because I don't suddenly need to have 2 terabits of drum samples on a hard drive somewhere. I just grab it from the cloud. That's really, really cool for me.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. Anyway, it's online still. If you go to Roland Cloud, it should be listed there, and you can watch the whole thing. It's like about an hour. I mean, I think the other thing about it is quite often when you see people demoing keyboards and synths, there's an element of cheese to it. Then maybe artistry is not their first thing. They're more in a sales mode. Whereas this was just, this is the sort of thing that I think Thomas Dolby does anyway. He does a gig and he talks about stuff and he has an intro and then he plays songs around it. So it's part of what he does. So it felt like a very complete thing. It wasn't something that he'd had to kind of hastily cobble together, and it didn't feel awkward from that sense. So it was as a thing, it really holds up. So it's well worth watching if you're interested in that. Okay, we'll quickly have a look at this one because I think I've seen Div Kid Ben in the chat room. So this one probably best to come to you first, Matt. But this is Div Kid Ben Wilson,
and the top bit is a controller that we will come to.
Oh, I think actually I need to start that video from the start, don't I? I do beg your pardon. I need to clear that.
In the top bit is a controller that we will come to.
I do beg your pardon. I'll play that from the start.
Hello. I've recently been at Deershed Festival, which I'll put a picture and a link in the description. And we were exhibiting, showcasing, demoing modular synths to the public. And Deershed is a really family-friendly festival. Lots of children around and parents, effectively. And me and Milo Melodies went and exhibited modular stuff in the science tent. So this is the system that I used. I wanted to go through it. This is a Glasgow Make Some Noise, or GMSN, 12U slipper case. Tucked in the top bit is a controller that we will come to. And I just wanted to run through the setup and what we actually did.
I recommend you watch the whole of that video. It's kind of interesting. But what's really interesting about it is obviously it's been designed for kids to use. And the faders is a really, it outputs loads of control voltage. So you could use it for bringing up and out, in and out and controlling stuff. So it felt very hands-on. So people didn't have to get involved in all the spaghetti. They could just do it. And it seemed like a really well-designed system. But it got me thinking about, getting kids into, there's some great shots of like little girls kind of playing with it and getting really into it and stuff. And it just sort of seemed like, what a brilliant idea to do generally, just to sort of democratize accessibility to that, because most people would never have seen this kind of thing in the flesh. So, I just thought a good idea. And I thought I'd come to you, Matt, first. But, in terms of, introducing people who have perhaps don't have any concept of what that stuff behind you does. Have you ever had to do that? How would you approach it?
Yeah, I did. I've done. Even this year at the Brighton Music Conference, I did a session which was 101 modular, and it was packed with a room full of people who didn't know anything about this. And I had some cameras on there, and I took them through some basic patching and allowed them to ask questions. We went along. I think it's filmed. It might be online somewhere. And that was really good. And obviously we've got this also in the classroom. We've got hardware, we've got software. But I think there's the one thing that Ben's got to appreciate, if he's going to take this sort of thing out to young kids, there's a responsibility there. This is expensive equipment and it's very addictive. So I think we've all got a responsibility here. That's all I'd say. But it's really good what he's done. Nice one, Ben. I think he's in the chat room. Yeah, I think it's brilliant that you're taking that out there and taking the time and showing these people from a young age the possibilities. When I was young, it was a piano or a guitar or a bass, and if someone had come along maybe and plonked one of these in front of me when I was 8 or 10 or something like that, I think I'd have had a very different perspective and motivation in where I was going to go with being a music producer and performer, definitely. So yeah, good stuff, Ben.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's quite funny what you put, because I was going to say it's sort of it is a bit like peddling kind of, it's legal, isn't it? But yes, Eurocrack, you've got it absolutely right there. But a great idea. I don't know, Dave, you've done a couple of educational things. I know you have, Gaz, too. I'll come to you first, Dave. I remember you telling me that, when you took an actual hardware synthesizer into colleges where people are mostly using software just through necessity, it's like a kind of epiphany for some of them.
Yeah, they were A-level students and degree level students. And that was fascinating because it was a mini Moog, because it's just got that kind of overdriven mixer section. And honestly, the too cool for school kids that were in that class, who was, surly sitting in the back, that was me a million years ago. The minute they touched that mini, they just started grinning from ear to ear. And it was really difficult to get them off of it. In fact, I probably had to fight them at the end of it with knives just to get my synth back. No, I thought this was great, actually, really great. And it's that I've had a very similar experience recently where something that I'm privy to that you've seen, Nick, but obviously we can't tell the world. A kid came in and started playing things from that, and they're very they just start grinning, and it's bloody brilliant. And I think that was meticulously set up, actually, because at first I was like, what, you're going to let kids get into the cables and stuff? In fact, I've been resetting the Moog up because like all of the oscillator modulations were on, all of the control voltage modulations were on, and it took me a while to kind of get it back to something sensible again. In fact, it took me a while to realize what was going on to get it back. And I was just like, whoa, this is a license. But as soon as Ben talks about that little controller, I just think it's a brilliant idea, because I don't know, I sent you that link, and that whole thing about schools and education, about learning instruments. We develop empathy, I think, with other people by learning instruments and creating things with other people, and if anything that's creative at this moment in time is a good thing. It's
a good antidote to what's going on in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
The 16N, this is a bank of 16 faders. I think it's on GitHub, so I'm guessing it's probably open source. So it's just 16 faders that you output 0 to 5 volts power and MIDI data as well. I think I'm not too sure about it, but it looks like it could be kind of interesting. I know, Gaz, you've also done educating stuff, and I know that's part of and the improvisation. I mean, somebody actually said in the chat room, what do you think would be the best synth to put in front of somebody who's never, kids that were maybe thinking of getting into it? And there's an additional question there, but perhaps I can toss in.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, well, firstly, just something I wanted to say. I remember when I was probably about 12 or 13, someone came into my school and they brought a whole rack of synths and did a performance. And I remember there being a SH-101 and I think a Juno and a few other things. Probably this was, very early 80s. And I was fascinated. I absolutely was fascinated. And for me, that's where it began. It really, so it did have a very strong effect on me. So I'd imagine, for young people maybe experiencing, say, at that festival, for instance, I think there probably will be various people who kind of get into it. What's the best synth? I mean, well, for the really young ones, it was that one, of course, that was announced, I think was it at NAMM this year. We did a little feature on the Blip Box, which was now that was for, pretty much for like
Fisher Price
kids,
kind of
really.
thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Really cool thing, though, because it is a proper synth. Although one of the criticisms some people have levied at it is that nothing's labeled, but it does have like signal flow. So you can see that knob, if you turn that knob, there's an arrow that points to another knob. So you do get an idea of the interactivity of it. And that looks great. And a friend of mine who's got a little boy, he wants to get one. Really cool looking thing. Look at that. And it is a proper synth, and it's got a MIDI. Well, it's got a MIDI in on it, I think, hasn't it? So you can plug a keyboard into it.
Right.
I wish it did label what everything is as well. So for people as they get older, it does actually introduce the names of the parameters as well. But anyway, so obviously that's for very little kids. Then, Volcas are great, aren't they, for, first, for people's first hardware. And, other things like the pocket operators as well are really cool. I've seen some young, my friend bought some of them for her two little ones. And they loved it. They loved them, partly because they could just annoy everyone because they're just using the built-in speaker. And just, I mean, the other thing about the modular stuff, which is quite interesting, though, is as young people are kind of just, as their brains are kind of just learn, they're just getting things together. The actual pathways that you create to make a modular system work, it is kind of, there is a very, it's a bit like creating some sort of neural network, isn't it? Or something, that this goes to this and this links to this. And there is a certain amount of physics at play there that by physicalizing it, taking it outside of the computer, I think gives like that real, I think it probably helps build logic circuits. So I can see them actually having a really beneficial effect just on your brain as you're kind of just learning stuff. So I think other than them being like fun things, I think they probably do really help you develop sort of certain important, logical skills, I guess. However, I mean, yeah, Ben's definitely a very brave man, letting sort of some grubby, muddy kids play with this stuff. Yeah. So fair dues, I think that was, and Myla too. I think that was a brilliant thing for them to do. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of validity in this, and it is something that I'm hoping to be doing in the near future as well, is going to be taking sort of hardware synths to schools and stuff, hopefully for that purpose. Really, I think that people who are born into the kind of computer age, I think it's really super for them to realize that this has a history outside of the computer. And yeah, great, really super positive. This is right up my street, really. Yeah.
Funnily enough, Richard Olpin, who's sat behind you, Gaz, has just put in the chat room a microbeat would be a good call as well, because it's only a couple of £100. So that's not a bad idea. What would you suggest, actually, Matthew, as a first, maybe a first introduction, because not obviously even a small modular is going to be pricey.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Well, actually, the SH101 I have on the back of it has got a skull sprayed or etched into it. So I know schools used to have these, and I think Gaz mentioned this. I'd certainly say, a 101, just because it has got CV and gate. So if you then want to expand it and start plugging it into other things, you can. But just the way it's laid out, I said this is my desert island synth anyway. Just the fact that it's laid out with the envelopes really clearly in the waveforms, and the keyboard's a good, decent size as well for your fingers, not mini keys, that kind of thing. So that, or if you then want to step it up one, you get the MS-20 out, and then you've got that semi-modular thing going on there, and you get the patch cables out, and you start having a bit of fun with that.
Well, of course, there was the educational version of the MS-20, wasn't it? Which was the size of a kind of very large television.
Oh, the blackboard,
the blackboard. I'm thinking I know someone who had one. I'm sure I've seen one in the.
There was one in EMIS. EMIS. They had one in the upstairs in EMIS.
So, what do you think, Dave? What would you recommend? Affordable for kids.
Well, this is the really funny thing, you see, because I get emails from people going, could you just send me a couple of sounds from that CS80, because I'd really like one. It's just that I need to get the whole purchase past the missus. Well, what better bribery to get a purchase past the missus than the kid needs it? So CS80 is absolutely indispensable for the child, and you wouldn't want to deprive my child, would you? And that way, you've got, when they grow up, you've got a roadie as well.
Investment in the education. Well, that's not a bad idea, I suppose. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how much education costs, certainly in the UK, for kids. So, an 8 or 10 grand synth investment is only a small percentage of that total lump sum.
Great idea.
How to get it past the missus.
Excellent. Well, I think that's probably a good point to draw things to a close. Thank you ever so much for joining us, everybody. Thanks to all of you people in the chat room. We've got the YouTube chatties who are flying past at a rate of knots, and also our IRC folks as well. Thank you for joining us there. And I just wanted to actually, before we go, should just refresh your memories of the Isotope competition. If you want to win a copy of the Isotope Vocal Synth, which is an excellent vocal production set of plugins that will allow you to harmonize, vocodize, modelize, effectize, all of these things to a vocal. It really is a very powerful system. We're looking for a Twitter entry, so you need to tweet the hashtag vocal production, the hashtag vocalsynth2 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. That's the hashtag vocal production and the hashtag vocalsynth2 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. Excuse me. Once again, we thank them very much for the provision of the prize. So I think that's probably it for this week. So I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. I forgot Gaz. There was something that came. It was Rupert Neve's 92nd birthday yesterday. Can you believe it? And he's still working.
He's still working.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, 92, still working and still doing amazing stuff. I mean, wow. Why isn't he Sir Rupert Neve? I want to know.
That's a good question.
Surely.
Maybe a bit too niche. I don't know. He hasn't won the Tour de France, has he?
Oh, come on. I mean, look at the effect it's had over music history. I mean, he's one of the most important contributors to music in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
More.
I'd say that's a very good call. And of course, we've got the Steinberg URRT, which has got the Rupert Transformers in it. You're speaking into one, are you?
Into one now. With the Transformer, I've done this before. With the Transformer, with the Neve Transformer, and without the Neve Transformer. So I don't know how well you can actually hear that, but
just a bit more
makes
body.
It really good. Yeah, it makes a really cool difference when you're recording, though. It's very cool.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in fact, I'm going to play out with your track because I've snipped it out of the review just for fun. Because as part of the review, Gaz recorded a whole track through it. We could look forward to that. But yes, thank you very much for joining us, Gaz. Very much pleased. And also, Matt Hodson, thank you too. I hope you get to finish off your EP, and don't forget, check out Matthew Hodson on YouTube because you're doing a lot of live streaming as well, right? So.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna carry on doing some more. I mean, I've had some good comments from it, so I'll just continue until people get fed up and stop watching and leave me alone, and then I'll stop it again. But yeah, go check out my YouTube channel and see the last 3 episodes are probably what you want to see. It's called Come Patch With Me.
Excellent. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks,
thank you for
everyone.
joining us.
Cheers.
And also, Mr. Dave Spears, thank you for joining us too. It's been a pleasure. I must admit, there wasn't an awful lot of 55 interjections into the show as promised at the top. So you've got like 10 seconds now to make a difference.
Oh, it's gone out of tune now.
So it has.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you very much.
So I've got that, and I think the last time I was on, I was working on a hi-hat pattern. So I've got 2 things going on now in about 6 months.
Excellent. Well, good work. Good work. I imagine all the heat and everything, it must be a nightmare to keep them all in tune. Anyway, I want to say thank you very much. That was Sonic Talk episode 543. So we'll see you all next time. Take care. And I'm going to play out with Gaz's Opus. See you later.
Okay, I'm Gaz Williams. Hope you've enjoyed this. Catch you next time.
Mind over matter when you haven't got a friend. Sit right down in a holly bush with a prickle and a pen. If you find what you're after, then go right back again to that same old bush with the funny looks from the piglets and the hens and the weary Morris man. Cock Robin has been shot at noon. No mammal was aware by who. Was he shot for his skin or bread? Was he better off dead? I am the captain, and I'll take it off from here. I can't find who he was talking to, just a minute for his end. His death was natural, there's no conspiracy. So why don't you switch back the tune to the cheering one again? Ignite the Morris men. Cock Robin has been shot at noon. No mammal was aware by who. Was he shot for his skin or bread? Was he better off dead? Well, I can't afford a camera, I would have caught the shot. A television mogul would have given me all he's got. Instead I sit and wonder how Robin met his end. A hero now among us, our feather-footed friend.
Hey. Thank you very much, Gaz. Right, that's it for this week.
What do you think?
Sorry. What do we think of the?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's all right. I was going to say, what do you think it's about?
Keep calm, mate.
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll have to have a lyrical analytic. Anyway, see you next time.